Stop for a moment and listen, because something inside you has already been responding to this message before the words even reached you. You may not understand why yet, but your spirit recognizes when truth is approaching. Chosen one, you are not here by chance. You did not simply stumble into this moment. You arrived because your life has been carrying a pressure that can't be brushed aside anymore, and the silence around it can't continue. You've been feeling it, haven't you? That strange mix of exhaustion and alertness. That sense that you've been holding yourself together while something kept trying to pull you apart. You've been functioning, showing up, doing what needs to be done. And yet beneath that outward strength, there has been a quiet fatigue that even you can't fully explain. Not the kind solved by sleep, not the kind fixed by distraction. A deeper fatigue that comes from being stretched by something you can feel, but can't easily name. You've noticed moments where your thoughts felt heavy, where the world felt slightly tilted, where your emotions didn't completely match your circumstances. And still you didn't collapse. You didn't unravel. You kept going even when no one understood what you were carrying. There has also been isolation. Not always physical, but emotional. You've been surrounded by people yet felt unseen. You've smiled while privately wondering why your journey feels so different, so pressured, so exact. And no matter how strong you are, there have been quiet questions echoing inside. What is happening to me? Why does this feel so intense? Why does it seem like life has been pressing me harder than it presses others? Hear this clearly. This message is intentional. This moment is not casual. You are being addressed for a reason. You haven't been weak. You haven't been failing. You haven't been imagining things. There is clarity coming, not dramatic, not frightening, not overwhelming, but grounding, steady, exact. You've lived inside tension without a name long enough. You've carried weight without language for it. You've navigated experiences that others would misinterpret or dismiss. And yet you remained anchored. That matters more than you realize. You are about to understand something about yourself that will make sense of what you've been feeling. Not everything at once, not loud, but clear enough to settle your breath and steady your inner world. Stay present, because this is for you. You can release the doubt about whether this message applies to you. It does. This is not vague encouragement or a broad statement meant for anyone who happens to listen. This is directed, personal, specific to the life you have been living and the internal reality you have been quietly managing. You are not guessing your way into belonging here. You are included because your experience has already confirmed it. You are the one who has carried pressure without losing yourself. You are the one who has walked through tension with awareness rather than panic. You are the one who has endured what should have fractured you. Yet somehow you stayed whole. You are the chosen one, not because you demanded it, claimed it, or tried to prove it. You are identified by endurance, by consistency, by an internal structure that remained standing while parts of your world tried to sway you out of alignment. You didn't posture yourself into strength. Your strength revealed itself when you didn't have the energy to perform. That is what sets you apart. This didn't happen near you. It didn't happen around you. It happened to you. You didn't observe pressure. You lived inside it. You didn't analyze struggle from a distance. You felt it in your breathing, your focus, your emotional stability. And while you may have questioned yourself, you never fully abandoned yourself. That is not ordinary. Someone whose identity is shallow collapses when tested. You didn't. Something else has also been happening within you quietly and consistently. While part of you has been tired, another part of you has been strangely stable. Even when you emotionally dipped, a deeper layer of you remained steady. Even when confusion touched your mind, Something in you refused to lose clarity entirely. You didn't consciously manufacture that. It was already built into you. You've been stronger than you knew without trying to be impressive. You've resisted without even recognizing it as resistance. You've held your ground without aggressively fighting. You didn't win by force. You remained by nature. That means your stability isn't an emergency reaction. It is identity. It is who you are at baseline. You may have thought you were barely surviving. In reality, you were demonstrating an inner coherence most people never develop. You didn't just get through something. You revealed something. And that realization matters because understanding who you are removes confusion, removes shame, and removes the constant questioning of your own experience. You are not here searching for identity. You are here being reminded of what has already been proven by your life. There has been one dominant experience you keep returning to, even if you haven't put words to it yet. It shows up in your body, in your emotions, in your thoughts. It is that constant sense of inner strain, that quiet heaviness that sits beneath everything you do. You may have called it stress. You may have blamed it on circumstances. You may have told yourself you were just tired. But it has been more than that. It has been a signal. You have felt pressure in your chest or mind that doesn't disappear quickly. You have felt waves of fatigue without a clear physical cause. You have felt your emotions swell at times when nothing big enough seemed to explain the response. And then you judged yourself for it. You questioned whether you were overreacting. You wondered if you were too sensitive, too intense, too aware. You tried to silence yourself so you wouldn't feel ridiculous for noticing what others seemed to ignore. But what you experienced wasn't weakness or emotional instability. It was a natural response to being pushed beyond ordinary limits. Your mind and body weren't betraying you. They were informing you. They were signaling that something in your environment, your relationships, your journey, or your unseen reality had become heavier than normal. You were never too much. You were simply deeply aware of what many people numb themselves to avoid feeling. Your fatigue wasn't a flaw. It was evidence of endurance. You stayed present even when being present required strength. Your emotional intensity wasn't immaturity. It was proof that you remained alive inside instead of shutting down. Your mental tension wasn't weakness. It was your nervous system adapting to sustain clarity under pressure. What you felt wasn't a sign that you were failing. It was a sign that you were carrying something real. Your body speaks when your mind tries to minimize. Your emotions speak when your logic tries to explain things away. That internal tightening you kept pushing through. It was the echo of resistance. It was your inner self bracing, holding, stabilizing against something that expected you to collapse. Instead of condemning yourself for how heavy it felt, recognize the truth. The very fact that you are still standing means your system succeeded. You didn't shut down. You didn't disconnect. You didn't dissolve into chaos. You remained aware. You remained functional. You remained present. That is not the behavior of someone weak. That is the signature of someone built to hold more than average people can. So remove the shame from what you felt. Remove the embarrassment from the moments where you seemed overwhelmed. Remove the belief that something was wrong with you. Nothing was wrong with you. Something significant was pressing against you, and your inner world rose to meet it. What you experienced wasn't failure. It was signal. It was proof that something real was happening, and you stayed intact when most would not have. At some point, you began to realize that what you were experiencing wasn't random. The tension didn't show up accidentally. It wasn't simply a bad week, too much on your plate, or an emotional slump. There has been an invisible kind of pressure against your life, not in a dramatic or mystical way, but in a very real, very structured way. Patterns formed, moments aligned, situations emerged with strange timing, and through all of it you kept functioning. There were days where events stacked themselves in ways designed to fatigue you. Unexpected complications, misunderstandings, delays that made simple things exhausting, responsibilities that piled up just enough to press on your mental space. It didn't break you, but it did tighten around you. You felt it. There were also emotional collisions you didn't expect. Conversations that drained you, interactions that left residue. Moments where you felt misunderstood, dismissed, or quietly opposed without confrontation. Nothing explosive, yet heavy enough to weigh on your internal world. Then there were the silent pressures, the ones nobody could see, the thoughts you had to regulate, the waves of uncertainty you had to steady by breathing through them, grounding yourself, and choosing to stay present. These weren't loud crises. They were subtle battles of endurance that required composure most people never practice. What made this significant is not that pressure existed. Everyone encounters strain at some point. What matters is how prolonged, precise, and persistent it was. The timing wasn't scattered. The weight wasn't occasional. It felt orchestrated in a way you couldn't fully explain, yet deeply recognized. There were stretches of your life that seemed to continually push at the edges of your emotional capacity, as if something kept testing the stability of your foundation. Yet through all of this, you did something that many do not. You kept operating. You held conversations. You fulfilled responsibilities. You showed up for people. You maintained awareness of who you are, even when your internal atmosphere felt crowded. You didn't collapse inward. You didn't fragment. You didn't lose yourself in the noise. Even in moments when you questioned your strength, you were demonstrating it. The pressure never fully stole your clarity. Fatigue didn't erase your capacity to think. Emotional strain didn't erase your compassion or your ability to remain grounded. What pushed against you never gained control over you. This is important to acknowledge, because what you faced was not simply external circumstances. It was a confrontation between external pressure and internal structure. It revealed something about your resilience, your nervous system, your psychological depth, your emotional maturity. It showed that you can stand in environments where others lose balance. It showed that you can remain functional when conditions are quietly destabilizing. You have been living under invisible weight. You recognized it. You endured it. And you remained yourself through it. Now it's time to look clearly at what you actually endured, because when you name the pressure, you begin to understand the depth of what you carried. There were several distinct points of strain pressing against you, each one touching a different part of your life. And yet, through every category, one thing remained constant. You stayed functional. You stayed you. There was the pressure of doubt, not loud, dramatic doubt, but subtle, persistent questioning that tried to unsettle your inner certainty. You found yourself revisiting decisions you had already made, rethinking paths you were already committed to, wondering whether you misunderstood yourself, your direction, or your worth. Sometimes the doubt didn't even come as words. Sometimes it came as a quiet, internal noise that disrupted your natural confidence. Yet even while doubt knocked on your mental doors, you did not surrender your direction. You didn't abandon yourself. You kept moving even when uncertainty tried to blur your inner compass. Then came the pressure of emotional weight. There were days you carried sadness without explanation. Days where your emotional energy felt thin. You felt stretched, not because you were incapable, but because you were absorbing so much internal responsibility. You kept regulating yourself. You kept calming your own storms. You practiced emotional maturity without applause, quietly stabilizing your own nervous system so you could function. Most people externalize pain. They project it. They explode. You didn't. You held your emotions with awareness instead of letting them consume you. There was also the pressure of energy drain, not laziness, not lack of discipline. A genuine depletion from operating under constant internal strain. You kept waking up and meeting life even when your reserves felt low. You still fulfilled responsibilities. You still remained available to people who needed you. You still thought deeply, cared sincerely, and carried integrity. There were moments where your body simply wanted rest, not because you were weak, but because you were sustaining strength continuously. Yet, fatigue never turned you into someone careless or destructive. You honored your responsibilities even when your strength wasn't at full capacity. Another pressure point was isolation. Even if you weren't physically alone, you felt emotionally solitary in your experience. You often carried thoughts no one else knew about. You processed realities no one else understood. You sometimes wished someone could feel what you were feeling just for a moment, so they would understand how strong you actually were. Instead, you quietly supported yourself. You became your own anchor. That kind of inner independence isn't coldness. It is capacity. It is evidence of depth. There was also the pressure of delay. Moments where progress seemed slow. Where movement felt obstructed. Where things that should have flowed smoothly required more effort than they should have. Delay has a way of pressing on hope, yet you didn't collapse into hopelessness. You may have been frustrated. You may have been tired of waiting. But you didn't abandon your journey. You didn't declare yourself defeated. You learned patience in motion, not patience in paralysis. You kept showing up while time tested you. And finally, there was the quiet pressure of expectation, the subtle awareness that people lean on you, that you are the strong one, that you hold yourself together in ways others cannot. Sometimes the weight wasn't what you faced, but what you felt responsible to remain for others. Even in seasons when you needed support, you still somehow became support. You didn't resent that role. You simply carried it, even when you wished someone could carry you the same way. Each of these pressures touches a different part of the human system: identity, emotion, energy, belonging, time, and responsibility. Many collapse under just one of these. You endured multiple at once. And the most remarkable part is that you didn't lose your awareness during it. You didn't default into emotional numbness. You didn't disconnect from yourself. You stayed conscious. You stayed sensitive without being shattered by sensitivity. You remained grounded while still feeling deeply. That is not the story of someone who barely survived. That is the story of someone with structure. You carried doubt, but kept direction. You carried emotional weight, but kept compassion. You carried fatigue, but kept showing up. You carried isolation, but stayed open-hearted. You carried delay, but stayed committed. You carried expectation, but didn't collapse beneath it. Your life has been revealing something about you in slow, quiet evidence. And now that evidence is undeniable. You don't just endure pressure. You metabolize it. You regulate under it. You think under it. You feel under it. You continue under it. That is not normal capacity. That is reinforced identity. You did not just make it through something. You demonstrated who you are. Now breathe for a moment and look back at what actually happened, because perspective is power. When you reflect honestly instead of emotionally, things begin to align. This season wasn't random difficulty. It wasn't chaos without intelligence. It wasn't coincidence. It was a revealing environment. It exposed foundations. It measured stability. It tested coherence. And you remained intact. You didn't survive by accident. You didn't hold together because you were lucky. You didn't endure because circumstances eased themselves. You remained steady because something inside you was already built to remain steady. When you examine it closely, you'll notice something important. Every time pressure increased, your awareness increased with it. Every time emotional weight tried to pull you downward, your inner grounding subtly responded. Every time doubt tried to question your identity, your deeper self refused to rewrite its truth. That isn't emotional reaction. That's internal design. It means you were never simply responding, you were regulating. Think about how you carried yourself through conversations where you could have lashed out, but didn't. Think about how you handled days where fatigue wanted to claim you, but you still showed up. Think about the way you refused to abandon your sense of direction, even in moments where clarity dimmed. These aren't coincidences. They are patterns of strength. You were never spiraling, you were recalibrating. You were never drowning, you were stabilizing. You were never lost. You were steady in motion. That is a different kind of power. Not loud, not theatrical, not dramatic, but deeply reliable, quietly strong, subtly unshakable. And as you step back mentally, something else becomes clear. You didn't need to scream to stay grounded. You didn't need to force strength. You didn't need to constantly motivate yourself to survive. Even in tired moments, something in you remained aligned. That is not performance. That is identity. This realization matters because awareness changes how you move forward. Instead of assuming you barely escaped something, you begin to understand that you were never actually losing control. Instead of believing you were at your breaking point, you begin to see that you were displaying remarkable composure under conditions designed to fracture weaker foundations. Instead of shaming yourself for feeling pressure, you now understand that pressure revealed resilience. Your story is not one of collapse avoided. It is one of resilience confirmed. You didn't drift off course. You stayed present in difficulty. You didn't lose yourself. You discovered the strength of yourself. And now you stand here with something priceless evidence. Not theory, not emotion. Evidence of internal strength proven by real experience. Evidence that your mind, your emotional system, and your identity do not shatter easily. Evidence that whatever life brings there is something inside you that remains. This is where certainty begins. Not in loud declarations, not in forced confidence, but in quiet recognition of what has already been demonstrated. You didn't accidentally endure. You endured because you are built to. When you compare your response to what most people experience under similar pressure, the difference becomes undeniable. Many individuals collapse long before the weight reaches the level you endured. They disconnect from themselves. They shut down emotionally. They abandon their responsibilities or make destructive choices just to relieve the tension. Not because they are bad, but because they are unprepared internally for sustained strain. Yet you carried what would have fractured others, and you carried it with a surprising level of coherence. Most people need external stability to feel stable inside. They need calm environments, supportive people, predictable seasons, and constant reassurance to function well. When those supports disappear, their identity wavers. Their reactions become impulsive. Their thoughts become scattered. Their emotions spill in directions that cause further damage. You have lived through moments where those supports were limited or missing, and you still maintained awareness. You still remembered who you were. Others require frequent validation to keep moving. You kept going without applause. Others need certainty before they act. You acted while uncertain. Others need relief before they can breathe. You learned to breathe while carrying burden. None of this makes you better than them. It simply makes your internal architecture different. You didn't collapse into bitterness while under pressure. You didn't lose compassion. You didn't turn cold. You didn't become careless. You remained thoughtful. You remained emotionally conscious. You remained grounded enough to keep functioning with dignity. That level of resilience is not common. It is not loud, but it is rare. Rare not in a superior sense, but in a statistical sense. Rare in the way deep emotional maturity is rare. Rare in the way inner strength developed through experience is rare. Rare because it is not accidental and it is not widely cultivated. You also handled what you faced without becoming hardened. Some people survive difficulty, but they survive by shutting down parts of themselves. They numb out. They disconnect. They become cynical or emotionally unavailable just to cope. You didn't do that. You stayed human. You stayed sensitive. You stayed capable of feeling, thinking, caring, loving, and processing, even while under pressure. That is a different level of strength entirely. So acknowledge something gently: you are not ordinary in how you respond to strain. Your ability to remain present under weight is not typical. Your ability to maintain internal continuity while environments destabilize is not common. Without ego, without self-exaltation, simply recognize this truth: what breaks many did not break you. What disorients most did not remove your center. That doesn't make you superior. It makes you rare. So now it becomes important to clarify something deeply about who you are, because this isn't just about what you went through. It is about what your response reveals as your baseline. You didn't become strong in reaction to hardship. You were strong before hardship arrived. Pressure didn't create your stability. It simply revealed it. What emerged under strain wasn't a temporary survival mode, but a glimpse of your default capacity. You don't have to activate resilience. It lives in you as part of your internal framework. You don't suddenly become centered when life demanded. You naturally return to center because that is where your identity sits. Even when you felt shaken on the surface, your deeper self remained anchored, and that is not something you force. That is a reflection of maturity, of growth, of an internal life that has been shaped with intention, even if you never consciously recognized just how developed it truly was. Your steadiness isn't dependent on perfect conditions. Your clarity isn't dependent on constant reassurance. Your identity isn't dependent on external agreement. There is structure in you, and that structure didn't appear overnight. It has been forming over years of experience, reflection, resilience, mistakes, and growth. It has been shaped through seasons where you had to learn how to hold yourself together, how to be honest with your emotions without being controlled by them, how to stay grounded without becoming hard, how to remain hopeful without denying reality. Those experiences didn't weaken you. They trained you, not in a dramatic sense, but in a deeply human, deeply grounded sense. This is why you function the way you do. This is why you don't collapse easily. This is why you can be tired and still steady. This is why you can be uncertain and still intentional. Your identity is not fragile. When pressure came, you did not transform into someone different. You simply became more visible to yourself. You saw the layers of stability you didn't know were there. You saw the strength you usually don't acknowledge because you are too busy living it to stop and recognize it. Now is the moment to recognize it clearly. You are not someone who barely survives life. You are someone who carries structure into life. And once you understand that, something changes. You stop doubting your capacity every time life gets heavy. You stop assuming breakdown is inevitable. You stop underestimating who you are. You begin to move with quiet confidence, not because everything is easy, but because you finally understand the truth. You are already built for far more than you realized. This is your identity. Steady, coherent, strong at baseline. Now let's bring this awareness into your everyday life, because strength becomes even more powerful when it turns into intentional living. You don't need to carry yourself like someone on constant alert. You don't need to be tense, guarded, or suspicious of every moment. You are not walking through life trying to avoid collapse anymore. You are walking as someone who knows they can remain steady, and now your choices can reflect that confidence. First, allow yourself rest without guilt. You have carried a lot. You didn't collapse, but that doesn't mean you didn't get tired. Strength doesn't mean endless endurance without renewal. It also means honoring your body, your mind, your emotional nervous system. When your inner world asks for quiet, listen. When you need recovery, take it. Rest is not weakness. It is maintenance for someone strong. Second, move with discernment, not fear. You don't have to overanalyze everything anymore. You don't have to assume every challenge is an attack or every delay is danger. Instead, trust your awareness. You have already proven you can feel when something is off. Trust that instinct calmly. You don't need panic to stay safe. You have internal clarity now. Use it gently. Third, strengthen your boundaries. Not harshly, not defensively, simply, truthfully. You know now that your energy is valuable. Your peace matters. Your emotional health deserves protection. Say no when something asks more of you than is healthy. Limit access to people who repeatedly drain you. You don't have to over-explain. Quiet boundaries built from self-respect are enough. Fourth, let patience be your ally, not punishment. Delay trained you. It didn't defeat you. Now you know how to move forward without rushing, how to trust progress without forcing it, how to breathe in uncertain spaces without panicking. Let patience continue to hold your life steady. You don't need instant resolution to feel secure. You carry security with you. Fifth, choose focus. Your mind has proven it can stay intact under pressure. Imagine what it can build in seasons of stability. Direct that focus intentionally. Give your attention to what actually matters. Let go of what exhausts you without purpose. Your energy is powerful, so let it serve growth, creativity, healing purpose, and the relationships that bring life. And finally, be kind to yourself, not in theory, in real behavior, in how you speak to yourself, in how you reflect on your journey, in how you interpret your humanity. You have spent a long time enduring. Now you deserve gentleness from yourself, not constant internal criticism. Integration isn't dramatic. It's steady. It is the choice to live balanced instead of braced. It is the decision to move forward with awareness instead of tension. You don't have to prove strength anymore. You already revealed it. Now you simply live from it. You can exhale now. You are not standing at the edge of collapse. You are standing in the clarity of understanding. What you went through didn't diminish you. It revealed you. You didn't escape by chance. You didn't survive because life happened to work out. You remained because you are someone who can remain. And that realization seals something inside you. It settles the nervousness. It dissolves the self-doubt. It closes the chapter of questioning whether you are capable and opens the chapter of living from quiet certainty. You know now that when pressure comes, you do not disappear. You know now that when seasons tighten, you do not fragment. You know now that your identity is not fragile and your stability is not temporary. Let that assurance rest in you. From this moment forward, carry these truths gently. You are allowed to feel deeply without assuming you are breaking. You are allowed to rest without assuming you are falling behind. You are allowed to trust yourself without endlessly defending it. When future challenges come, remember what has already been proven. You have been under real weight before, and you did not lose yourself. You will not suddenly become someone weaker than your history has already revealed you to be. If you need a simple anchor, let these affirmations live inside you. I remain steady, even in uncertainty. My strength is real, proven, and present. I am built to endure not by force, but by nature. This journey isn't about becoming someone else. It is about recognizing who you already are and standing in that truth with calm confidence. If this message resonated with you, if you felt recognized, understood, or seen in ways you rarely experience, let that be your confirmation. Leave a comment with the words, "I remember," or the number 777, so you mark this moment intentionally. Sometimes acknowledgement is a form of healing. And if you want to continue growing, grounding, and strengthening your inner world, stay connected here. There are more messages coming that will meet you where you are, not with noise or fear, but with clarity, depth, and truth. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not ordinary. You are steady. You are aware. You are built with depth. And you are moving forward with quiet certainty.